What's up, Flannelverse? We're back for Thursday Night Football, Week 5. Start of Week 5 here. Going to be going position by position as usual. Quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, tight ends, defenses, and kickers. In the end, I will be making all of my lineups with Run the Sims at the end of the stream. I'll be taking any questions you have as we go. As usual, please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Trying to get to 6,000 subscribers by the end of the NFL season. Could really use your support with that. Also, if you want to check out Run the Sims, you can use promo code Neil to get 10% off your first payment on any of their products. Good to see you guys here. What's up, Green Checkmark? A lot of people in here. Good to see you in chat. We're gonna get right into it. We got a little bit of a late start here today. The puppy is home. He is not really a puppy. He's 11 years old, but he is home. Happy to have the dog home after 20 hours at emergency services. So feeling good about that. Can focus on football now. We're going to start with the quarterback position. Mac Jones, 9,200 on DraftKings. I'll primarily be talking about DraftKings in terms of pricing, ownership, etc. Most of what I talk about is going to apply to FanDuel, but I'm going to try to find a little bit of time later on to just look at FanDuel pricing and ownership, all of that kind of stuff as well. Just briefly after we run through the whole slate, talk about the usage from a DraftKings perspective. No beer yet today, not during the stream, saving it for after the stream. My wife actually, we got home and opened a bottle of champagne. So we're in a celebratory mood with the dog home. I'll probably have some champagne later. Also because that's the only wine we have at home right now. Mac Jones looks pretty good here. You have the salary because we have so many strong spend up options. So many strong value options. Mac Jones at 9,200, pretty fair priced here. 50% total ownership. I would imagine I come in somewhere around that number. Not the biggest priority, but also, one of 5 spend up options that looks really good here. So I'm going to get to a fair amount of Mac Jones, probably right around the field there. In terms of the matchup, it is middle of the pack here. You can see it's I think they're 15th and 16th or 16th and 17th in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed. Not like a great matchup for Mac Jones, but you can only play players from the two teams. So I think he looks pretty good here. I think I'd like to be right around that 50% on Mac Jones. I might even come in a little bit higher than the 5% ownership we have here due to the price tag. A lot of different ways you can stack him up, as Adam and I discussed earlier. Pretty easy because there, you can include Christian McCaffrey in the stack. You don't necessarily need to, but then there's just so many different ways you can build out lineups that have Mac Jones in the captain spot. And he's not extremely expensive. So yeah, I think he looks good both in the captain and the flex. On DraftKings, I would say I always want him stacked up, and when I have him in the captain spot, I typically am going to want to have him multiple stacked again. The reasoning there being it's every time there's a passing play, the quarterback is outscored by the pass catcher because they score a point per reception, they score more per yard, they get touchdown points, etc., etc. All the usual reasoning. If a quarterback focuses too much on one pass catcher, typically that pass catcher is going to outscore them. So you need a big score from the quarterback to be the optimal captain. Usually, if they're focused too much on one quarterback, on one pass catcher, that pass catcher is going to outscore them. They're going to be the optimal captain. But that also comes down to price. So that we actually have a good example here of, on DraftKings, he is expensive enough, 9,200, where most likely, if he is the optimal captain, he's bringing along multiple pass catchers with him. FanDuel, where Mac Jones is only 1,000, that doesn't necessarily apply to that. You can probably play Mac Jones unstacked because you don't need him to really put up a big score to be the optimal captain at 1,000. If he puts up 8 fantasy points, he doesn't necessarily nobody else on his team necessarily needs to put up a huge score, so you don't necessarily need him to be stacked up at a price of 1,000. But because quarterbacks are usually also expensive, that is part of the reasoning for wanting to have them multi-stack when you have them in the captain spot. On the other side, we have Matthew Stafford. Looks great. 55% flex ownership, 10% captain ownership. He is 10,400, a little bit more expensive than Mac Jones. A little bit tough in the captain spot. I think he looks great. 55% flex ownership seems fair. I suspect I'll come in underweight here in the captain spot just because you have some really big priorities on the slate for captain, particularly Puka Nacua, Christian McCaffrey, Devonta Adams all look great at captain. So I imagine I'll be a little bit underweight to 10% Matthew Stafford. And then again, because unlike Mac Jones, they're so concentrated in the offense that if Stafford puts up a lot of fantasy points, most likely one of Puka Nacua or Devonta Adams is just going to outscore him. So it can work out that he is the optimal captain without bringing multiple pass catchers along. But typically, when Matthew Stafford puts up a lot of points, one of his pass catchers is going to outscore him, or if he does, distribute enough. So I think I'll be underweight in the captain. When I have Matthew Stafford in the captain spot, I'm going to want to have him stacked up with multiple pass catchers because he is so concentrated. He's very likely to bring along multiple if he puts up a big enough score to be in the captain spot. And neither runs is the other factor. Neither Mac Jones nor Mac Jones nor Matthew Stafford averages double-digit rushing yards per game. They're both single-digit, so typically not doing a ton on the ground. Obviously, there can be exceptions to that, like we've seen with a couple quarterbacks this year that don't run a ton, have actually had some big scores, but it's kind of rare. Let's move on to running backs. We'll move along quickly so we can start making the lineups. I assume some of you have already watched the morning show, but I'll try to get through as much of the same info as possible. Christian McCaffrey, just one of the best plays on the slate. Again, last week on the 11-game main slate, one of the biggest points that I kept on making on shows was I think it was viable because Christian McCaffrey and Puka Nacua score so many fantasy points. Even on an 11-game main slate, I made the point that I thought it was possible. Just start every lineup with Puka Nacua and Christian McCaffrey and build around them because they have such high floors and high ceilings. Now we get them both on a showdown slate. Both are pretty big focuses of mine. This is a really easy stars and scrubs slates because we have so much value on both sides with several key players out for this game. So Christian McCaffrey, really easy to get to with all the value. Tough to see him failing unless there is, unless he gets hurt, obviously, or there could be a blowout situation where he ends up not playing quite as much. We do have an 8.5 point spread here, which Adam was actually sending me some information. We were talking in DMs, and Adam was pointing out that we have 23 games in like kind of a small range in terms of the total and the spread. So he like kind of looked at games with similar totals and spreads to this one. And it was kind of surprising how many of them actually ended up. I think it was 11 out of 23 since 2022 or something. I think these are about the right numbers. Ended up being 14. A team won by 14 or more points. So this could be a game where we see one of these teams really separate, and we do see some blowout time where maybe we don't get the usual workload there. But in most scenarios, we're going to see Christian McCaffrey just get a ton of work. Even if it is a blowout and he's out after 3 quarters, he's probably been targeted 8 times by then. He's just got such an awesome workload. So McCaffrey, tough to not want to play all the McCaffrey. He doesn't need to put up 30 fantasy points on a 1-game slate with this much value. He could put up 18 and he still might be optimal even at this price tag. Just because we have so much value, you need to find the raw points somewhere, and McCaffrey just really likely to put up those raw points. So far on the season, so through 4 games, 69 rushing attempts, that's pretty nice, and then more than 10 targets per game, nearly 11 targets per game so far on the season. Just an awesome workload for Christian McCaffrey. 77% route participation. That is, those are wide receiver 1 numbers, and I think I saw somebody post. It's like wide receiver 1 numbers and running back 2 numbers if you just completely separate out the receiving and the rushing work. Just insane workload for Christian McCaffrey this season. So I'll be playing a ton of McCaffrey. Brian Robinson looks fine. He's 2,400 projected for 6% ownership at those numbers. I mean, he doesn't have a huge workload, but a little over 5.5 rush attempts per game so far on the year. Under 1 target per game, only 8% route participation. So you don't love that. And he's probably never going to be super involved in the passing game. So Brian Robinson maybe makes sense if you want to build a script where, I mean, if you want to build out for Christian McCaffrey getting hurt, I guess you could do that. Or a blowout if you think, he gets if he averages 5 carries per game, 5.5 carries per game, maybe he gets 4 of those in the first 3 quarters, and then they give him the fourth quarter work because the game is just out of contention at that point. So maybe he ends up with 10 carries in that scenario. Sure, you can go ahead and build for that scenario with Brian Robinson, but I think the ownership is fair at 6%. I don't think I'm going out of my way to get more than that, again, because this is a slate where we just have a ton of value. So we don't really need to be forcing the players that are like, there are, contingency scenarios where he could look okay. There are just so many other players who just in a regular game script are going to be used a ton, that he's not extremely appealing. But again, he does have the usual outs. Was it Sean V's birthday yesterday? That's sad stuff. Sean, RIP. Do you think there's a chance we see CMC and Brian Robinson share the field? Sure, there's a chance. I mean, they're missing so many starters. They're going to have to do something to get a little bit weird. So yeah, I could see them sharing the field together. I don't think there's going to be a ton of that. But yeah, it's viable. I don't know, like, do you think that we see Brian Robinson take a much bigger workload because they're running a lot? I mean, I do like the 2 running back builds as we talked about on Monday quite a bit. That was something that Adam and I talked about extensively, is that you can always you can always play 2 running backs from the same team. I think regardless of whether you think they're on the field at the same time, there are scenarios where both running backs get there for sure. I see people talking about tight ends. We'll get to tight ends. Don't you worry. We're just at running backs right now. We're going to be working our way down the list down here. So I'll get to tight ends soon enough. Yeah, Brian Robinson looks fine. We talked about Garendo a little bit. He just hasn't had any workload at all so far on the year. 0 offensive snaps for Isaac Garendo. There again, if you want to play for a blowout scenario or a Christian McCaffrey injury, and you can play him with Brian Robinson or on his own, he's cheap enough that maybe he could make everything work for you, but it's a little bit thin. I don't know that I'm going to get to Isaac Garendo because, again, he has not played an offensive snap on the season yet. Doesn't mean that he can't. We do have, and Jordan James is inactive, so it, in the event of a blowout, I do think it would be Isaac Garendo that gets that work most likely, because they're already using, I don't know. Now would it be Isaac Garendo or Brian Robinson? I think in a blowout scenario, they would want to get Garendo a little bit of run. So I don't think it's like too thin to play in a 150 set. It's just not a priority on a slate where, again, we have a lot of great value. It's not as exciting to me as it would be on, there are some slates where it's just like, there's no value. What are you going to do? How are you going to find somebody to make everything work? We've got a lot of players that can make everything work here. So it makes it a little bit less of a priority on a slate like this. So I don't know if I'll force my way to any Garendo. I'll have to think about whether I want to include any in my portfolio, but certainly not a priority. And then Juszczyk, 2,000 projected for 3% ownership. Again, I wouldn't call Juszczyk a priority, but he does have a little bit more of a workload so far on the year. 0 carries through 4 games, but he does have 7 targets, 21.3% route participation. And then being the fullback, of course, he is live to see like a goal line carry. So Juszczyk a little bit more viable, but again, I would not call any of the backup running backs on the 49ers priorities beyond obviously Christian McCaffrey, the starter. In terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed for running backs, it is bottom 3 matchup against the Rams so far in the year, and not particularly good through the air or on the ground. So matchup wise, not awesome. But Christian McCaffrey's workload is just so good that I'm not really concerned about it. He'll get the PPR points regardless of whether he gets a ton of yards with them. And I think he's obviously one of the best running backs in the NFL still. I think he still is. Maybe just as an elite workload covering up for his inefficiency. But I think he'll still have, some breakouts here. So I think Christian McCaffrey, high floor, high ceiling, a priority on a slate where it's easy to fit him into your lineups. On the Ram side, Kyren Williams and Blake Corum. Sean McVay keeps on saying that he wants it to be a 65-35 split between Kyren and Blake Corum. And some games he's come back and said, yes, this is exactly how we want it to look. Other games he said, yep, just didn't work out to get Blake Corum in there. Clearly prioritizes Kyren Williams over Blake Corum quite a bit. he loves Kyren Williams. He just said it. And, his most recent quote, I believe, in the Coach Speak Index is, "I love Kyren Williams," and then he added, "I love Blake too." But he clearly prioritizes Kyren Williams over all other running backs. Kyren projected for 33% flex ownership, 10% captain ownership so far on the season. Kyren, 68 carries in 4 games, 10 targets on 47.9% route participation. Blake Corum, 23 carries and 5 targets on 15.8% route participation. I did think it was interesting, the most recent game for the two of them, 13 carries for Kyren, 9 for Blake Corum. So getting closer to the workload that he envisions for the two of them. They also both saw 8 targets, but it was Kyren on 60% route participation, Corum on 15.6%. So I think it's a little bit fluky that they ended up with the same number of targets. I think that's just kind of how the game worked out. Kyren has gotten 2 of the 3 inside the 5 carries so far in the year. The split it doesn't really change based on where they are on the field. It's like prioritizes Kyren, works in Blake Corum if they do extend drives. And that's actually something he talked about. And that's kind of what I've always seen. And it's sort of frustrating when you play Blake Corum. It's like, if they have a 3 and out with Blake Corum out there, even if Blake Corum is not involved, like if they're trying to throw it, it's a 3 and out. It's like, that was a Blake Corum drive. They're just going to bring Kyren back out there. So it's not like he's forcing Blake Corum's playing time. He's not forcing the 65-35. That's like, we'll get to 65-35 if things go right and we can extend drives and we can, I get to play my Kyren enough. Then I'll play Corum 35% of the time. So kind of a limit on what Corum's going to be with Kyren healthy. He did say, like, we do, like, you got to be able to play the hot hand approach. So maybe there are scenarios where Corum's just playing so well that he could earn a little bit more, but a little bit of a cap, it seems, on Corum's workload as long as Kyren is healthy. But the best workload that he's had so far on the year. Last week, 9 carries, 4 targets, looks good for Corum. But Kyren, I think, is obviously the priority for the Rams at running back. He's one of the top 5 plays on the slate. I think we only really have 5 or 6. Let's see, both quarterbacks, Christian McCaffrey, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, and then Kyren, I guess. So we do have 6 studs on the slate. Kyren, certainly one of them. I think this is fair ownership, 9,000, 33% flex ownership, 10% captain ownership. I think he looks like a strong play, easy to get to. Not that interested. And then Blake Corum, 17% flex ownership at 3,000. Seems fine. Again, 9 carries and 4 targets in the most recent game. I don't think, maybe he would play in a blowout. He would at least play until it's like completely out of hand. At that point, maybe they use Jarquez Hunter. But I don't know that he would continue to play if it's a complete blowout, because clearly they do kind of value Blake Corum to an extent. I think at 3,000, he scores a touchdown. He's probably close to paying off his salary if he gets like 8 fantasy points. But we do have a lot of value on this slate. So not as great of a play as he would be on a slate where there isn't so much value. I think he's a fine play, but at 17% projected ownership, I'm not like going out of my way to get more than that of Blake Corum. I think we have some other value plays that I actually like just as much or better at ownership. And Jarquez Hunter, kind of similar to Isaac Orendo. It's like, yeah, if you think the game is going to be a blowout, you want to build for a blowout script. I think it could be Jarquez Hunter in that scenario. Like they've used him on special teams so far. Sean McVay keeps on saying, like, at some point we're going to use him. I don't know that it's going to happen this week, though. They have not used Jarquez Hunter yet, so you'd have to be kind of wish casting a little bit if you play Jarquez Hunter, which could happen. But again, we have a pretty big spread here, but certainly not a priority given all the value we have on this slate. All right, let's move on to wide receivers. I'll check in with chat if you have any questions, comments, concerns. Let's see. Entertainment, play for entertainment. Anything could happen. Yeah, that is true. You should not be playing money you can't afford to lose. Okay, people are talking about whether Thursday Night Football is here to stay. I mean, I'd be surprised if it goes anywhere. It's all about the money, right? The NFL makes money the more days they have games on. Tonight will be a good MME night. I agree. I did not make a Run the Sims instructional video today, Dustin, but you can. I've made a few for past Showdown slates, so you can go if you just want like a general idea of how to set up Run the Sims. You can go check those out. I will also be building my lineups today on this stream, so it's maybe tough for you to build at the same time as me in the last half hour, but I'll be showing you how I'm doing it today at the end of the stream. All right. I'm gonna keep moving along. I'm not gonna scroll all the way up for all comments and questions, but feel free to keep throwing them at me. Neil, what are you setting your max salary at? I use the Sims. I haven't been setting a max salary because I'm using the Shady Advice portfolio optimizer. So I'm just trying to get a good mix of like lineups that look good because they project really well versus lineups that look good because they aren't going to be duped a lot. So I'm kind of letting that figure it out for me. But I do think if I were using an optimizer, I would probably be forcing it to leave at least like 800 on the table, given how much value you have on the slate. I think that's probably a good number because we do also have some awesome spend up options. So I don't want it to be too high. But yeah, I think if I were using an optimizer, I'd probably force it to leave like 800 on the table, which I actually could do here. That is something you can do, is say I don't want to use more than X of my salary, but I don't think I'm going to. Are you boosting any players tonight? MVS, D, Robert Gage. I mean, that's never been like boosting isn't really how I do it. But I do like change the projected inputs, that kind of stuff, to get to more and less of different players. So yeah, I will be. But I don't know exactly who I would boost until I see how much I'm getting to of different players. Just resetting all of this just to make sure I have everything updated for inactives. All right, wide receivers, obviously pretty interesting with Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall out on top of Brandon Ayuk, who's been out all season. So it's kind of wide open here for the 49ers. The general assumption is that it's going to be Kendrick Bourne and Demarcus Robinson as the wide receivers 1 and 2. I'll show you the schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to receivers. It is the fourth best matchup for receivers against the Rams. So it looks like a nice spot on paper for these receivers. Just a little bit tough to know exactly how things are going to break out. I think it's Kendrick Bourne. If I were like to order them in terms of who I think is the wide receiver 1, I think it would be Kendrick Bourne, followed by Demarcus Robinson. And then from there, it is up in the air between Sky Moore and MVS. I think I would call it Sky Moore as the number 3, but I'm not super confident in that. And that's how they have it projected here. You can see the projections in Run the Sims. That's exactly how they have it. And we're not getting to a ton of ownership on Sky Moore and MVS, which is going to make them interesting. But Kendrick Bourne and Demarcus Robinson, just really strong value plays. Again, Kendrick Bourne, 4,600, Demarcus Robinson, 3,600, project well. If we just look at their route participation, so this is the full season route participation. You can see week 1, 2, 3, 4, the columns here. So we had in week 2, Juwan Jennings was out. And Sky Moore ran 59.5% of the routes. So that's with Ricky Pearsall active, Juwan Jennings out. Demarcus Robinson was also out for that game, but Sky Moore ran 59.5% of the routes in week 2. And I think with, you remove Pearsall and add Demarcus Robinson back in, even if you gave Demarcus Robinson all of Ricky Pearsall's route participation, and just expect Sky Moore to take this. I mean, I would take 60% route participation for Sky Moore at virtually zero ownership at a low price tag. Looks like a really strong play. But Kendrick Bourne already the past 3 games. So we missed week 1, 55.8%, 73.8%, 67.5%. And now we get Pearsall and Jennings out. I would anticipate that his number goes up even more, and he's going to be, I would think, leading the team in route participation. Obviously, there's no guarantee there. Demarcus Robinson, 32.5% in week 4 in his first game. We're just expecting that number to move up, and he's going to take that wide receiver 2 role. This is pretty wide open. We don't actually know what's going to happen with Demarcus Robinson, how much he can handle in his second game of the season. Then you have MVS, who missed the last game, is expected is active for this game, and then Sky Moore. So we don't really know what to expect from the wide receiver breakdown, but ultimately, I think they all look like pretty strong value propositions. I think just looking at the ownership, and actually, I'm just going to check real quick. Here's how RG has the ownership, because obviously Sky Moore not going to be at 0%. Making sure this is up to date. Let's see. They've got Sky Moore at 8%, Malik Turner at 4%, MVS at 5%, Demarcus Robinson 23%, Kendrick Bourne 26%. So very spread out in terms of ownership for the 49ers wide receivers. Is Russell Gage up with the team? I guess I didn't double check. He's not on the inactives list, but he's projected for 0 fantasy points. So I actually don't know what Russell Gage's what his status is. Is he even on the team anymore? Because I don't think either place has him projected for anything. That's always worth checking in these situations where it is like we really don't know. It's possible that I missed something here. Let's see. Does anybody have info on Russell Gage? Let me see if I can find anything real quick. All right. Okay, standard practice squad. This is from Noah Furtado 3 hours ago. Standard practice squad elevations: wide receiver Malik Turner, not Russell Gage. Defensive end Trevis Gibson. So it looks like Malik Turner is up, Russell Gage is not. Interesting. And then Ari Myrov, I guess this is yesterday, he tweeted this, that it was going to be, he had Russell Wilson up, but that was yesterday. So we did not get the practice squad elevation today. So I think Russell Gage is out, and Malik Turner is in. So I think that was just an inaccurate report yesterday, if I'm reading this all correctly. Malik Turner not projected for any. He's 200. If you think Malik Turner is going to play, which maybe he's 0% route participation so far on the season, but he is up with the team. Now they're missing their 2 starting receivers. Who knows? Maybe they use Malik Turner a little bit here, but not being projected for any. I think he's a fine dart in a 150 set. Probably don't get there in 20 lineups, but in a 150 set, I think Malik Turner at 200. Sort of interesting, just from the standpoint of we really don't know, and he is the 5th active receiver. So if they have 5 receivers active, we're making some assumptions that Demarcus Robinson is capable of playing more than 35, running more than 35% of his routes after just making his debut last week. We really don't know for sure. So I think Malik Turner I think all 5 are viable, but in terms of how I see them in terms of the likeliest workload, I think it would be Kendrick Bourne 1, Demarcus Robinson 2, Sky Moore 3, MVS 4, Malik Turner 5. But again, I think this is more of an unknown than we have on most slates. So I think you don't need Malik Turner if he has 4 fantasy points on a slate like this, most likely. But he's probably more likely than the typical wide receiver 5 to actually be, the wide receiver 2. Like we really don't know the pecking order here at all. So from that standpoint, I think he's viable. If you want to play him 1 out of a 20 set, I think that's reasonable, but 0 is still the likeliest scenario there. There's just in a large field tournament, there are outs there too. Hey, maybe he ends up running 50% of the routes out of nowhere, and could we really be shocked that they're playing Malik Turner instead of Demarcus Robinson and Sky Moore and MVS? Like, that would not be shocking to me. So I think Kendrick Bourne is like the one that is a sure thing. I would say Kendrick Bourne is a sure thing to get a pretty strong workload here because he's already been getting it. He is the veteran in the room. I expect that to continue. I don't really think we have another sure thing here out of the next 4, but in order of confidence, I would say it's Demarcus Robinson, Sky Moore, MVS, Malik Turner. But at their ownership numbers, I really like both of MVS and Sky Moore. Well, here, Run the Sim says MVS at 21%. That is pretty different from 5% that RG has it at. Obviously, that makes a big difference. 21% versus 5%. I'm actually going to look another off screen. I'm going to look at another source and see where the industry is at on ownership projections here. Got a couple more I can look at. All right. Yeah. Other places do not seem to have a ton of ownership going to MVS. So it looks like Run the Sims is the outlier in terms of ownership projection here. Let me see. Yeah, it looks like they are likely the outlier here. Just double checking because it's so far off that I want to make sure. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So looks like most places projecting MVS for single digit ownership. How many sources do you use? Usually I just use two. I look at Run the Sims and Roto Grinders most of the time, and if they're close enough, I'm going to assume that they're right. But then if they're this far off, then I kind of like to look at more sources just to get a better idea of what to expect. I think 21%. I kind of actually think that it's going to be double digits. Like everybody can see that this is kind of wide open. So I'd be surprised if he doesn't at least reach double digits. But everywhere else has him double digits, low double digits. So probably I would expect it to be like 10 to 12%, I guess, MVS. Malik Turner, I think, will be like 1% or less. Sky Moore, I think, probably gets to upper single digits, maybe low double digits. But, it's clearly we're all guessing. Like all the what I'm seeing is it's so disparate across all the different sites. We're all just kind of guessing at ownership here, but I suspect that they're close, at least in that it's going to be Kendrick Bourne, Demarcus Robinson, 1 and 2 here, and then the rest certainly lower. But I think at low ownership, at like just barely double digits or maybe even single digit, I think MVS, Sky Moore both look great. Malik Turner, if he's more than 3% owned, I probably wouldn't want it, but he's probably going to come in lower than that, in which case, yeah, I think that's worth a shot. On the Ram side, not nearly as much up in the air. We've got Puka Nacua is the very clear number one receiver. He has the highest target rate in the entire NFL at 36.5%. He's been targeted eight more times than the next highest receiver in the entire NFL. Just an awesome workload, even on just 78.8% route participation. 50 targets through 4 games for Puka Nacua. A very clear priority, easy to spend up to get to both Puka and Christian McCaffrey. He is going to be one of my bigger priorities on the slate. Project for 43% flex, 32% cap and ownership. I think that's about where I'd like to be. 75% of my total lineups with Puka Nacua. I feel like, unless there is a blowout or an injury, I shouldn't say that. There are ways. It's NFL. There can be chaos where just the team can't extend drives. Weird things happen. They don't have the ball enough for him to be targeted double-digit times, and suddenly at his price tag, he doesn't pay it off. But if he gets to 18 to 20 fantasy points in that range, which would be a letdown game for Puka on a PPR site, that still could be enough. So like even a like relatively bad game for Puka probably gets there. And most of the time he's going to be, over 20 fantasy points. You can see his projection here is 24.6, just an insane workload for Puka Nacua. Matthew Stafford throwing on the ball obviously helps. He looks great. Devontae Adams, a little bit of a hamstring injury. He said that he's not 100%, but with that said, he ran all of the routes last week, I believe. By all of them, I think I mean like 90 some percent last week. So clearly, and he already had the injury last week. So I think we can expect Devontae Adams to again have a pretty great workload as long as he stays. Okay, 86.7% route participation last week, 6 targets. You could play it as though, maybe Devontae Adams is limited. Maybe he has an in-game re-aggravation, something like that. Like there are more outs for him to not play his full routes because of the injury. But I think generally I'm willing to play at least 46% Devontae Adams. I think he's one of my favorite captain options on the slate at 8%. Just has a great role, gets targeted in the red zone quite a bit. Also has a 25% target share, which that's pretty nuts to have Puka Nacua with the highest target share in the NFL, and then Devontae Adams still getting targeted 25% of the time. Insane how concentrated this offense is. Devontae Adams looks great. And then behind those two, a little bit more of a question with Jordan Whittington and Tutu Atwell. So far on the season, Jordan Whittington, 44.5% route participation, Tutu Atwell, 45.9, 6 targets for Whittington, 5 for Atwell. So neither of them targeted even 2 times per game. That's how concentrated it is on the top guys. But that could be, and we can pull up route participation here. That could be because it was Tutu Atwell running more routes and he wasn't getting the job done, wasn't earning the targets as much as the team would like. So maybe Jordan Whittington earning a little bit more of a role because he's a better target earner. I think you can make a pretty strong case for Jordan Whittington here if he is going to see north of 60% route participation as he did last week. You can see in week 2, they actually had the same route participation. But week 4 is the first that Jordan Whittington had a higher route participation than Tutu Atwell, and by kind of a significant margin there. Adam pointed out today, and I thought it was a good note, that the game that Jordan Whittington had previously spiked up to 47.1 was the game that Colby Parkinson missed. So being kind of the bigger wide receiver out there, maybe he benefits from tight ends missing time. And of course, now we have Tyler Higbee out. So it could be more opportunities for Jordan Whittington from that perspective, just fewer 2 tight end sets, more 3 wide receiver sets. So we could see Jordan Whittington benefit even more. And he'd already earned 62.2% of the routes last week. So pretty bullish for Jordan Whittington. Even better, he's just 1,000 projected for 16% ownership. I think he looks like a really strong value play that I like to have a good amount of here. And then Tutu Atwell, again, last week he had his lowest route participation of the season at 35.6%, but saw 2 targets and converted one of them for an 88-yard touchdown. So maybe he earned something a little bit more. And he's always just been a big splash play guy. You can count on a few splash plays per year from Tutu Atwell. So that is certainly a possibility for him. But Jordan Whittington, one of my favorite values on the slate at 1,000, 16% ownership, kind of getting lost because we have so much value opening up from injuries elsewhere. Maybe you get lost with the wide receiver who's just earning a little bit of a better role. But I like him at 16% ownership. 1,000 looks great. Tutu Atwell, I mean, if he does come in at 1%, I'd certainly want to be 5% Tutu. Like we know he's, again, that 88-yard touchdown. If he has, doesn't need 80 or 50-yard touchdown, that's probably enough at 3,200 to pay off his salary. So I do think a 1% owned Tutu Atwell, somebody that I like here. But Whittington, the bigger priority for me. And then, if you want to play a little bit of Xavier Smith, I think that is totally fine. Again, not running many routes, but he's value play that is fine. Again, not a priority on the slate because we have so much value, but in a 150 set, maybe somebody to mix in a little bit. Tight end, also a very interesting position. I will move on to tight ends. Look through, see if I have any questions or anything in chat. What's up, Chris? Good to see you. Would you stack Adams and Nacua together without Stafford? Yeah, you certainly can stack them together without Stafford because the target share is so high for those two that they can just get there through PPR. Like they could have 8 and 12 receptions and neither of them scores a touchdown, or maybe just one of them scores a touchdown, and they both get there without Stafford getting there. Certainly possible to play them both without Stafford. Rams defense captain, I think it's viable. We'll take a look at the ownership of the Rams defense at captain. But I think they're playing against Mac Jones, who's a little bit, he's actually not that inexperienced. He has a fair amount of experience at this point. But it's a good enough defense. So many of the weapons are gone for the 49ers. You could definitely see the 49ers offense kind of struggling here. And if they get a takeaway for a touchdown, then you certainly could be something you need. All right, tight ends. Starting on the Niners, again, George Kittle has been out since week 1, so we kind of know how things look for the 49ers tight ends with just George Kittle out. We can see how they want to play it. But they also could benefit now with a little bit more usage with Jawan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall also out. Like we assume it's going to be the wide receivers who benefit. We also could see the tight ends benefit a bit here. Jake Tonjes is somebody that I have a fair amount of interest in at 4,200. Just projected for 14% and 1% ownership. If we look at his route participation with Kittle out, 65.1%, 64.3%, and 65%. So pretty consistently in that 64 to 65% route participation range with Kittle out. And also has 16 targets in 4 games. Again, in the first one with Kittle in there. So pretty strong usage for Jake Tonjes here. And it could get better with the other with the starting receivers out. He might be moving up the pecking order a little bit. So I think he's honestly fairly priced. Some nice coach speak, and let me see if I can find was it recent coach speak? I thought it was kind of promising, but let me find it. Didn't think it was that far up. On the 11th, offensive coordinator Clay Kubiak said Jake Tonjes has great hands and he has a route running skill set for a tight end. He can stretch the field vertical. He has good speed. We've been developing him as a blocker and he's gotten better. So it sounds like, to me, what that sounds like is they trust him as a pass catcher and they're developing him as a blocker as well. So they right now his role is primarily as a pass catcher. And he's been used 16 targets through 4 games, including one with George Kittle is no joke there. So I think Tonjes looks like a pretty strong option who could get handful of targets again here in not an amazing matchup, but getting a little bit of spam. All right, let's I didn't look at schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed for tight ends. Middle of the pack. Both look like they're slightly above average matchup for tight ends. But yeah, with the starting receivers out, I think we could just see the workload get even better for Jake Tonjes, and it was already pretty good. So I think he looks pretty strong at 4,200. Luke Farrell, 1,600, projected for 5 and 0%. Still also has like a decent workload, not to the same extent, but been kind of all over the place. 30.8%, 41.9%, 16.7%, and 35% route participation. In terms of target share, Farrell at 5 targets through 4 games. So not a great workload, more of the classic backup tight end, but again, could benefit from the starting receivers being out. Maybe they run more 2 tight end sets. He gets a little bit more workload. Braden Willis, in a 150 set, if you want to mix him in, fair game, but just 2.5% route participation in that last game. Maybe benefits from the starter receivers being out, but I'm not expecting a ton there. On the Ram side, Tyler Higbee is out, so this becomes a little bit interesting. Colby Parkinson is 600, Davis Allen 1,200. Parkinson projected for 22% ownership, Davis Allen 10%, which I think is just a matter of the prices being doubled for Davis Allen there. But both are pretty strong value options. Davis Allen, 34% route participation in week 1, 12% in week 2, 17% week 3, 13% in week 4. Converted on his only end zone target for a touchdown. I think he scored another touchdown that got called back due to a penalty, I believe. I did not go back and find that, but I think that he actually scored a second touchdown that called back due to a penalty, which is not going to be accounted for in the stats, but kind of shows that he does have a bit of a red zone role. I mean, he already scored at least one, so even without a second one, looks pretty good. But I think the route participation probably moves up for Davis Allen with Tyler Higbee out, and he has been used a fair bit in the red zone. They're going to prioritize Devontae Adams, like he's not the number one option there, but I think he's a fine option. Colby Parkinson also, similar workload, 28%, 11.4%, 15.6% route participation. Probably gets a bit more work without Tyler Higbee out there. So I think both are relatively strong options. Kind of hard to know which one of them is going to be the bigger priority for this offense, who's going to like run more routes, see more targets. If I had to guess, I would probably guess Davis Allen over Colby Parkinson, but it's sort of anyone's guess who would be the preference. I think we also actually had some positive coach speak on Davis Allen, which I think is part of the reason I'm leaning there a little bit, and just the red zone usage so far on the year. Let me actually find that real quick. Davis Allen quote. Well, Colby Parkinson had been limited in practice. Oh, it's actually yeah. So on the 15th, on where McVay is at with Terrence Ferguson's development plan and what that future looks like, he said, "We'll see. He's done a really good job. He ended up playing on a lot of third downs yesterday. Ball didn't necessarily find him, but he did a good job. I think it will only be an incremental build. I was really pleased with Tyler Higbee yesterday. Davis Allen just continues to find the end zone. Those guys did a nice job. I think Terrence is going to be a guy that's going to continue to improve, and we want to continue to find ways to get him involved. What does that look like? It's hard for me to say until we really get a game plan together for this week." Yeah, so all he said is that Davis Allen continues to find the end zone, which I think is true. So I think Davis Allen looks pretty good. Oh, here's another quote on Davis Allen on the 8th from Sean McVay. Davis Allen is a tough player, competes well at the point of attack. He's a mentally and physically tough dude. He's resilient. I think he's earned the respect of his coaches and teammates. So, just a little bit of positive coach speak. Nothing to read too much into with coach speak that positive. But I think Davis Allen, probably my favorite of the tight ends in a vacuum on the Rams, followed by honestly, they're all kind of interesting. I think Colby Parkinson is not that far behind. Nobody's going to be surprised if it's Colby Parkinson running 60% of the routes instead of Davis Allen. But then Terrence Ferguson, I think we don't really know because we haven't seen Tyler Higbee out yet. It's possible that Terrence Ferguson kind of does more of what Tyler Higbee is capable of as a receiver. And they've talked about, Tyler Higbee. A lot of the quotes from the offseason were like, Tyler Higbee is the glue of this offense. And Terrence Ferguson, they refer to him as Tyler Higbee's heir apparent for when Tyler Higbee retires. So they want Terrence Ferguson to be their tight end of the future. But with Tyler Higbee out, maybe he's prepared enough that they're willing to give him a little bit more of that workload. It's not the likeliest scenario. I think the likeliest scenario is that it's still just Davis Allen, Colby Parkinson leading the way. But Ferguson notably did run 9% of the routes when Colby Parkinson missed a game. They got him involved a little bit. So that's just, only a little bit of route participation opened up. With Tyler Higbee leaving more there, who knows? Maybe Terrence Ferguson takes on more of the Tyler Higbee workload than we're expected, and it's more of a three-headed monster than anybody is projecting. And he is only 200 and only getting 2% ownership. So I think Ferguson is a pretty strong bet for large field GPPs if nobody's going to play him also. All right, I think that does it for Ted says if Ferguson beats me, I'll lose tonight. I think that's fine also to not play Terrence Ferguson. No issue with that. All right. Moving on to kickers and defenses. Let's see. There we go. San Francisco side, and it's worth noting also that Nick Bosa is out. I guess I have not mentioned that yet, but he's out for the year, which obviously makes the matchup a little bit better for the Rams in general with Nick Bosa out. But Eddie Pinheiro projected for 17% ownership at 5,000. San Francisco defense projected for 6% ownership at 3,800. I don't mind. I'd like to be above 6% on the Niners defense, even without Nick Bosa. I think they're just weird stuff happens in the NFL all the time. So even if they're not set up for success here, they can just have random stuff go their way and they score a pick six or a fumble recovery touchdown, and suddenly they look awesome at 3,800. So if they come in at 6% ownership, yeah, I'd love to have more than that of the Niners defense. Pinheiro at 17% seems totally fine. Cardi on the other side, 5,400 projected for 21% ownership. Again, no real issue with that. There's enough value that it's not like as much of a priority as it might be on some other slates. And then Rams defense, if they came in at 15% total ownership at 4,000, I think they look really strong against Mac Jones and a totally beat up San Francisco team that's missing, again, their starting quarterback, all three of their starting wide receivers, and their starting tight end. They're just so beat up that I think Rams defense at 4,000 looks like a really strong play if they're going to be contrarian at all. I think they're actually everywhere else projected for a little bit more ownership than that. Yeah, RG has them at 24% flex ownership. Captain, the Rams are at, where are they? Just 1%. Oh, that seems fine. Somebody asked about them, so I want to look that up. Yeah, 1% seems like a totally fine play. All right. I think that does it for the position by position. Now I'm going to make some lineups. Take any questions you have. I'm going to start by just running some sims here. I forgot to require 20 minutes before you can comment in here. So we got the bots are going nuts today. That's what happens when I forget to do the 20-minute wait to comment after you subscribe. So first things first, I like to run it before I've made any changes. So I'm going to do that right now. So all I do is I make sure the settings are set up for the contest that I play. So I'm playing the largest field contest. I'm only going to do 15,000 lineups because you rarely need more than that, I think. This might be a weird slate. So I'm going to do 20,000. Size of contest, 15,000. Number of sims, 10,000. I'm going to use the Shady Portfolio Optimizer. Have to see how many lineups I'm going to be playing. All right, 232. So I'm going to use the Shady Portfolio Optimizer for 232 lineups. So setting this to 232. Come on, I can get there. There we go. 232. And then the payout structure, I'm going to do top heavy because the large field contests that I play are all top heavy. So I'm going to use that payout structure, 232 portfolio diversifier, and I'm going to click the SimRunner Pro button. Now the sims are going to run for a few minutes, and then I'll come back and do that. Now I'm going to, while those are running, I'm actually going to move things around in my spreadsheet real quick before I take a look at FanDuel. Yeah, here we go. Just want to make sure I've got the higher dollar stuff up higher in my spreadsheet. Although that has not worked out for me so far. I debate whether I actually should do that because I think so far my biggest successes have been in the mini-max so far this year. My best lineups have typically been there, and they're typically lower on the list. Right. The sims are running. All right. Get rid of the spam. I'm going to laugh if you get out players. I mean, I shouldn't get any out players because they're not projected for anything. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right to not fade CMC. You just need an injury for him to not work out. I think as long as he's healthy, I'll probably force my way onto a little bit of Malik Turner, not a ton, but I think I'll try to make sure that I have a little bit because again, I listed they only have 5 receivers I think up with the team right now, and we don't really know what the order is going to look like. I think Tonda's captain looks pretty strong. I like the play of Tonda's captain. I don't think you need it to be like you have enough salary that you can play Puka Nacua, Christian McCaffrey, a captain. So I think most of my lineups are probably going to have one of those two. So I don't think I'm going to do a ton of Tonda's captain, but he's going to be pretty contrarian, and you can get to a lot of great stuff with him in the captain spot. So yeah, I think it's viable. No, my computer is a desktop. All right, while that is running, I'll take a brief look at FanDuel. Actually, you know what? I'm going to run. Well, let's see. Let's see if I have time first. Thinking I could run the Sims on FanDuel just because we have such a weird scenario with the Mac Jones price tag. But let's take a look at the projected ownership here. So Rotogrinders has it at 34% CMC, 19% Puka Nacua, 13% Kyron Williams. So they have Mac Jones at 7% projected ownership at captain or at MVP on FanDuel. I think if he actually comes in at 7%, he becomes a stronger play. I said in my expert survey that I would set a cap at 5% Mac Jones MVP because I sort of anticipate that it's going to be a lot more than this projected ownership. I think he just makes it so easy to play whatever else you want that I'd be pretty surprised if it's under 10%. But I could be totally wrong. Maybe this is the right ownership projection. At which point I would probably change my tune and I'd want to play more of Mac Jones. Like if he's not going to be super high owned, then sure. I guess if nobody else would do it, then you can sign me up for Mac Jones MVP with McCaffrey, Puka Nacua, whichever of the studs you want to play there instead. So yeah, if he comes in this low owned, I would actually like Stafford quite a bit. But I'm gonna love Devontae Adams at 7%. No real issue with McCaffrey, but if the ownership is this different, I just go to Puka Nacua instead of Christian McCaffrey. He's less expensive. The projection not all that different. Not that surprising if Puka Nacua is the highest score on the slate instead of Christian McCaffrey. So yeah, at these ownership numbers, I would just prefer Puka over Christian McCaffrey. Kyron looks fine, but I'd rather play Devontae Adams than Kyron Williams. He's also cheaper, less expensive. I don't really know that I'd go that far off the beaten path, honestly, on FanDuel MVP. You can play the value options in the flex instead. So I think generally I'm just going to be playing the highest projected. Like I probably mostly just cut it off after these top 6: McCaffrey, Nacua, Kyron, Devontae Adams, Mac Jones, Matthew Stafford. Like one of them is just so likely to be the highest scorer on the slate that I probably just mix in those 6 on this slate. So not finding anybody super odd at MVP, but you can find contrarian plays in the flex instead. Again, Mac Jones 1,000 just makes it really easy to do whatever you want. So I think he's a really strong flex play. I'd certainly have a lot more than 37%. I'm going to play all the Puka Nacua and Christian McCaffrey if I can fit them into my lineups. Stafford would be a pretty big fade for me. He had 65% ownership. Again, just because I can play all the other guys at lower ownership and they're going to project around the same or better. Defenses look fine. 19% Rams looks okay. Kickers totally fine. Tonja's 6,000, 12% ownership looks pretty good. Robinson 12% at 5,200 looks good. Whittington looks like a priority again. 2,800, 7% projected ownership. Love that. Atwell's fine. Davis Allen looks really good at 4% projected ownership. 1.8K. Sky Moore looks awesome. So look at all these value options. You can kind of do whatever you want. Even leave a little salary on the table. But because there's so many value options, you can play them in the flex and just play one of the studs in the captain. Puka Nacua, Christian McCaffrey, kind of the biggest priorities in the MVP spot on FanDuel. MVS at 2% ownership looks good. Malik Turner 1%. Less appealing here because everybody else is so much lower, but also looks fine. Let me see if my Sims are still running. I want to see what run the Sims has the ownership at for these guys. Again, reminder, you can use promo code Neil, 10% off your first payment at Run the Sims on any of their products if you want to check it out. But I kind of want to just see what it will give me. So FanDuel, single game, San Francisco, LA. So they have Mac Jones at 86% flex ownership, 9% MVP ownership. This looks a lot more like what I would expect. They've got McCaffrey at 57 and 27. On the Ram side, Stafford 57 and 24. Kyron 55 and 8. Puka Nacua 63 and 26. So these numbers are pretty significantly different. And I think these are the better numbers on FanDuel. 45% and 5% going to Devontae Adams. Still not getting a ton of ownership to like these tertiary options, these tight ends. Whittington, Atwell, pretty low owned. I guess because you just don't need to get there with Mac Jones being so cheap. But I'm gonna run these Sims. I'm not even playing beyond a few. I think I only have one hand build so far, but I just want to see what they look like. So if I set it up the same way for large fields, I'll do 150, see what it would look like. All right, we are almost done with the first sim. All right, I'm just going to see. I only got 4,800 lineups already. Interesting. I thought I'd get more because we have so many options on this slate, but apparently not. I'm going to just download these and make sure I get some lineups in, so I'm not playing an empty lineup set. So let me put that in real quick, and then I'll analyze what I got and make some adjustments. All right, we got lineups in. So I'm not going to be taking zeros here. Top lineup. And again, these are not in order of EV because I have the Shady Portfolio Optimizer in. So I'm not just getting the top EV lineups at the top. I'm getting the top portfolio of lineups for 232 lineups. The first lineup we get here is Puka Nacua at captain with Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Whittington, Kyren Williams, Matthew Stafford, and Sky Moore. Second lineup, Puka Nacua, Christian McCaffrey, Colby Parkinson, Mac Jones, Matthew Stafford, and Sky Moore. A lot of Sky Moore in here. Interesting. Third lineup of Christian McCaffrey with Colby Parkinson, Mac Jones, Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, Sky Moore. Fourth lineup, Sky Moore in the captain spot with McCaffrey, Josh Carty, Kyren Williams, Mac Jones, and Puka Nacua. Looks like basically all these lineups have both Puka Nacua and Christian McCaffrey. Trying to find one that does not. Which maybe I don't have any. Let's look at my player exposures. So you can see right at the top. So and you can see these far right columns are what I'm looking at because I use the Shady Portfolio tool. So this is going to be my exposures in those 232 lineups that I set it for. I got to 65.4% Christian McCaffrey in the flex, plus 21.8% at captain. So just a ton of Christian McCaffrey, 87% of my lineups. Puka Nacua, 42 and 38. So more Nacua at captain. Matthew Stafford, a total of 60%, 57 and 3 in the captain spot. Kyren, 29 and 15 in the captain spot. Mac Jones, 39 and 2 in the captain spot. Devontae Adams, man, low Devontae Adams, 23 and 7 in the captain spot. 44% Josh Carty, 19% Kendrick Bourne, plus 2 in the captain. Rams defense, 30.7 in the flex, 5 in the captain. So getting to a ton of the Rams defense at this ownership number. It is lower here than elsewhere. I might actually up that ownership projection a little bit. Colby Parkinson, 24 and 1. Jordan Whittington, 25 and 1. So that looks good. I like Whittington. Jake Tonges. I think I like Tonges better. I think I might increase his usage just a little bit because I think it could surprise here. Not getting to a ton of DeMarcus Robinson with the 33% ownership projection, just getting 6%. Blake Corum getting right with the field at 17%. Sky Moore, as expected, I'm getting to a ton with the projected. They actually have him projected for 14% ownership here. Interesting. Niners not getting to 10% at 6% ownership projection. Eddie Pinheiro only getting a 4%. Brian Robinson 6%, so right with the field. MVS, if you give him the 21% projected ownership, only got to 1% there. Didn't get to any Davis Allen, so I wanna change that. I think 1% Luke Farrell, 2% Tutu Atwell, not much use check, barely any Ferguson, barely 0 of Malik Turner, barely any Xavier Smith or Braden Willis. Okay, so that's where we're starting from. So some things that I want to change here. Pretty happy to get a ton of McCaffrey and Nacua. I think I want more Devontae Adams than 30% total, maybe. Rams defense, I'm going to increase their ownership projection to see if I still get to 35%. I think I'd like a little bit more of 49ers receivers than I'm getting right now, like across the board. It's a nice matchup. We don't really know. Wide range of outcomes there. More of Jake Tonges also. So I think I want more of the 49ers passing game, I think is what I'm seeing. And I think the Rams tight ends. So I think I'm going to make some changes to get more of those. All right, we're getting close on the FanDuel also, but I'm actually playing on DraftKings. So I'm going to prioritize getting those in. All right, so I'm actually going to change up going to give them 19 points scored, pace from 59.1 to 61. I'm going to bring down the rush rate to 40%. So by doing that, bringing up the pass rate, obviously, because I want to prioritize the Niners passing game. I'm still going to get to a ton of Christian McCaffrey because he's a big part of the passing game, 25.6% target share. That probably does bring me a little bit lower on Brian Robinson, which I don't really care that much how much I get of Brian Robinson. I would like to get some, so I'll see if he is removed completely, but I think I'll leave it for now. It's Sky Moore. I was getting to a ton. I think I want a little bit more MVS and a little bit of Malik Turner. So I'm going to bring up Malik Turner's target share to, well, first of all, who can I get rid of here? I don't know that I need use check at 2,000. I might be okay just getting rid of my use check exposure. I think I'm okay getting rid of my Braden Willis exposure. So I'm going to click the Smart Adjust button, and that is going to proportionally change when I change a market share. It's also going to change the touchdown market share. So if I get rid of Braden Willis market share to 0%, it's also going to change his touchdown market share. Kind of I want a little bit of both Luke Farrell. I want more Jake Tonjes, which maybe I'm going to get anyway because I've already increased the total pie of the passing game, but I'm going to move that up just slightly. I'm going to move Sky Moore just down to 8%, MVS up to 7%, and Malik Turner to 2%. And then I need to normalize. That'll bring everything to 100% because you need to run the sims. And then on the Ram side, I think I might want just a little bit more Devontae Adams. I already got him at a 25% market share. Just going to bring it to 26. Getting to a lot of Whittington, which I like. I don't think I was getting too much Tutu Atwell. I'm actually going to move that up to 6%. I think I'll get rid of my Xavier Smith. Just don't think I need it. Man, not really getting much of the tight ends at all. I guess because Puka Nacua is so high. I'm going to move Puka Nacua's market share down to just 34% target share. I think you can do that and still get to a lot of the others. So I'm going to do that. Bring Parkinson up to... Man, I don't think that Parkinson necessarily going to get more than Davis Allen, so I'm going to bring them both up to 10. I'm bringing this all too high. All right, is there anything else I can get rid of here? Blake Corum. Nah. Bring down Kyron slightly. Don't know if I want to do that. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll bring Kyron down to 6% of the receiving market share. I'm also going to get rid of Matthew Stafford's rushing market share entirely. Oh, no, I was not smart adjusting. That was dumb. All right. So then I'll bring up both Kyron Williams and Blake Corum as rushers and bring them down as receivers slightly and get more of the other receivers. All right, let's try that. Okay, I'm gonna see what this does, and then I think Rams ownership I'm going to bring up to 20% and normalize. Okay. What else do I need to change in terms of ownership? I'm going to bring down MVS's ownership just a little bit closer to where other places have it. So they have it like, I'll bring it to 12%. I think that's about where I think it's going to be. And then Robinson, maybe 28. Bourne, maybe I just leave where he is. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I'm going to try and run this again. So this is what I'm getting on FanDuel now, in that just testing it out. 150 lineups. Christian McCaffrey in the MVP spot with Kendrick Bourne, Kyron Williams, Mac Jones, Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua. Second lineup, Kyron, Blake Corum, Christian McCaffrey, Joshua Carty, Rams, and Mac Jones. If I look at my player exposures, I'm getting to 78, 79% Mac Jones in total with 10.5% at MVP with their projected ownership numbers. So a little bit under where we have it projected. Getting to a ton of Christian McCaffrey, 88%, 55 and 33 at MVP. Matthew Stafford, 65 and 8 at MVP. Puka Nacua, 46 and 20 at MVP. Not getting to as much of the cheaper guys, the kind of more contrarian options. Not getting to a ton of Tutu Atwell, MVS, a little bit of Sky Moore, 7%, 4% Jordan, 4% Brian Robinson, 11% Jordan Whittington, 8% Jake Tonges. Getting to a lot more Blake Corum, Kendrick Bourne. Bourne is only 30. I didn't even notice that. Bourne is 3,600 there, 25% ownership. So Bourne looks awesome at these ownership numbers. All right, I'm going to get back to DraftKings and look up chat. See what we're talking about. Yeah, Anthony, I think that's an error on the view because I think they actually have him at like 14%. We saw after I ran the Sims, it was showing 14%. So I think that's actually the number they're using. So I'll bring that up to them that there seems to be just a display area there. All right, let's see, getting rid of the bots. Yeah, Sky Moore, I think it's just the low ownership is why it likes it so much. And he ran 60% of the routes the last time that Juwan Jennings missed a game. So now with Jennings and Pearsall out, I think it's wouldn't be that surprising if he's running 75% of the routes here. Thanks to the reminder, Dan. Yeah, please do like the video if you haven't already done so. Is captain who you think is going to be the top scorer? Not necessarily. It's all because there is there's a salary multiplier. So it's not only does the fantasy points that they score is multiplied by 1.5. So if a player scores 10 fantasy points when you have them in the captain spot, you actually get 15 for them because it's multiplied by 1.5. But also if they are 10,000 regularly, they in the captain spot cost 15,000. So it's a kind of a calculation of a lot of the time it is just who you think is going to be the highest scorer because you want to get that 1.5x on the salary. But sometimes a player who is not the top scorer can still be the player you need at captain because they're cheaper and they score enough, but then they allow you to get to better players in the flex. So it's usually the player that you think is going to be the high scorer, but not necessarily always. Let's see. Yeah, that's kind of how I'm thinking Waylon. I think he's going to be higher owned than we're projecting. Playing a little owner's box, Chase says they don't change the salary for captain. Puka and C-Mac are dominated the captain. Do you see any way Adams or Kyron outscore them? Yeah, they could certainly outscore them. Wouldn't be that surprising. I mean, you could see either one of Kyron or Devontae Adams score a couple touchdowns, or you just see kind of a down game for Puka Nacua and CMC. It's certainly possible. It makes sense for them to dominate ownership where there's no salary multiplier. But yeah, I think I'd want to have some mixed in of Kyron, Devontae, and the quarterbacks. Probably nobody else. Just those sixes are the only six I'd likely consider. Highest upside util 2,600 or under. Is this a FanDuel question or DraftKings? Highest upside util 2,600 or under. I think util would be FanDuel, right? So let's see FanDuel prices. Luke Farrell. Probably Sky Moore. Sky Moore on the Niners. I mean, it'd be Mac Jones, obviously, if you're talking FanDuel. Followed by Sky Moore. And then probably Colby Parkinson, Davis Allen. Jordan Whittington just over that number. If you're talking DraftKings after it's done, I can take a look. All right, top lineup again. I think it's the same one as last time. Christian McCaffrey, Josh McCarty. Oh, we did get more lineups this time after I changed things. Kendrick Bourne, Mac Jones, Puka Nacua, Sky Moore. I'm going to download these and get these in because I've only got a couple minutes. And then continue looking at it. All right. Bada boom. All right. So yeah, 2,600 or under. Oh, MVS is right there. Yeah, it's probably actually. I might put Jordan Whittington. No, I'd go with one of the Niners. It'd be MVS. Probably is the highest upside. 2,600 or lower. Let's see. Catching up. All right, where are we at? Ownership numbers. Player exposures. Okay, so now after making those adjustments, I'm at 57% and 10% Mac Jones, way under on Stafford now. I got rid of some of his work, I think. So 32.5% and 1% after getting rid of his rushing game work. At running backs, getting to a ton, 85%, 86% of Christian McCaffrey, 36 and 19% Kyren Williams. Damn, okay. 25. So I got to a lot more of the Rams after getting rid of Matthew Stafford's rushing work. Interesting. Was not expecting to increase my Rams running backs that much. So I guess go Rams. 3% Brian Robinson. At wide receiver, we're at 37% and 19% Puka Nacua. Didn't get to any more Devontae Adams. I thought that I'd moved up. I guess I only moved him up 1%. Was not enough. 40 and 3% Kendrick Bourne. 11% Demarcus Robinson. 12. Oh man, not enough Jordan Whittington. That's a bummer. I really wanted to prioritize him. 30% Sky Moore. 4% MVS. 2% Tutu. Don't totally love the way this turned out. If I would have liked to have run another sim. Didn't quite give myself enough time here. Tight ends. Okay, a lot of Jake Tondes, so I like that. I want to cheer for Jake Tondes. 32 and 3%. Colby Parkinson, 15 and 1. Davis Allen, 9%. Luke Farrell, 2. Terrence Ferguson, 2. I think that's. I'd like more Davis Allen. I don't like Colby Parkinson any more than Davis Allen personally, so I think I'd like to up that number. I might actually prefer Davis Allen. So happy to get to Tondes. Wish that I had more of Davis Allen in particular. Defense, I'm at 20% and 1 for the Rams, 8% for the Niners, none in captain. And then kickers, 41% Josh McCarty, 1% Eddie Pinheiro. Okay, I would have liked to have changed that a little bit also. So didn't quite get to the numbers that I would have liked to here. Got a little bit closer, but I think some of my changes maybe worked in the wrong direction also. So not totally ideal there. Should I be nervous that my 150 set has 0 MVS? Yeah, because when you fade MVS, that's when he goes off. So yeah, you should be a little nervous, but you'll probably be fine. There's a lot of other strong options here, so I wouldn't be that worried about it. All right. Thanks everybody for watching. Good luck tonight. I will be back tomorrow. I'll be doing a show on the 4for4 channel with Davis, Corain, and Squirrel Patrol. I'll be back on Saturday on the Fantasy Points channel with Scott Barrett. On Sunday, I'll be Roto Grinders in the morning, and then Sunday Night Football back on this channel for Sunday Night Football. Again on Monday Night Football, all the good stuff. So please do like the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to catch all of my content coming up. Thanks, everybody. Let's make some money tonight. Good luck.